Welcome back. Welcome back to the Hot Mic Podcast. Nathan Ivy with you. I'm hearing a little bit of reverb there, a little background. We'll work on that. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Nate the Barbarian with you. Let me bring the screen down and then we can introduce everybody into the show. We got a packed house. We got TNT with us. How you doing, TNT? It's been a minute.
Nathan, crew.
Thank you for coming back. Thank you. I know you're gonna bring sanity. I've been dealing with these insane fellas, man. I mean, I'm just so glad you're here. Thank you. Thank you. My brother Kevin Aldridge, the voice of reason, sir. How are you?
I'm good, man. Happy Friday to everybody. Good to have TNT back in the house again. I think we all feel like we got an ally coming in because we just been getting on each other's nerves the last few pods. So
yeah, tell me about it. No argument there. No argument there.
This dude Phil even forced me into coffee this week, man, against my will. Made me have coffee with him.
Hey, I paid for that cup of coffee, pal.
Well, he needs no introduction, but Phil Hemlich, how you doing, sir?
I'm fine. By the way, Nicole, your ears may have been burning last week because your name was mentioned in several arguments made by some members of this panel. I won't say who, but I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, Phil.
But we didn't take your name in vain. Okay.
I tried to tell him. I tried to tell him not to speak for you when you was not here, but he wanted to do his whole Phil Hemlich thing. So
don't do it.
And we also have Laketa Cole with us. She was just on with us. Then I saw Cedric Denson. What's up, Cedric? Good to see you, bro. But she's just having some difficulties. You know how it is these days. So it looks like she's like out somewhere. She's campaigning. But I invited her in to chop it up about city politics and why she's running and what she sees. And hopefully we can make that happen. Also, Raven Mundy is scheduled to be with us, but she's going to be with us just hopefully in a short time, 10, 15, 20 minutes, I don't know. But sometime through the show, hopefully she'll join up with us because she's always a pleasure. Always. And then we got the people in the comment section. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. Nat, Brenda, Anthony, Jack, Rachel, hello to everybody. Thank you so much.
And I want to say hello to all my fans, even though one of you I noticed last time said that Nate should turn my mic off. I've forgiven that. And so just want to let you know, it's water under the dam or bridge or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Just take a second and please, and just share this. If you just take a second, just share it. And I really appreciate it if you do so. Let's jump straight into it. There's so much to talk about. I think we got Laketa back. Hey, Laketa. Audio not so good. I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Oh, I hear you now. There you are.
Okay. Hey,
hello. Thank you for your time today.
thank you. I had the state representative Cedric Denson helping me with this audio.
Yeah, we saw him. Tell him Cedric I said what's up.
Hold it. Does Hot Mike have to pay this guy for his work? Because our budget's kind of limited, Laketa.
I'm sorry?
I said our budget on this show is kind of limited. We have to pay this guy for his electronic expertise.
I know, right?
Phil's telling bad jokes. That's all.
Hey, my jokes.
I know. It was bad. That was a bad joke, Phil. That was bad. How are you doing, Phil? I haven't seen you in so long.
Laketa, it has been very long, and I was actually very excited when I heard you were going to be on. By the way, I'm really sorry, but I my plate's full. I can't manage your campaign this year, but I'm available for consultation. Just want you to know that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
So, Laketa, for people who don't know you, just kind of tell people who you are. And now you're running for city council, and you're running as a charterite.
Correct.
Right. And previously you were an endorsed Democrat. So I want to know why not a Democrat this time. And,
okay, sure.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So when I first ran, I ran as an independent, and then once I got the appointment and ran, and it was when I was 29 years old. I was the first African American female to be appointed to city council, and then after that, I did get the Democratic endorsement. I hope you can.
Give me a second. I had everybody muted for a second. Dang it! It just doesn't look like it's gonna work today with Laketa. And I've done this enough to know that you got to stop early rather than spend the whole show trying to catch up with her. So, hey, Laketa, if you're watching, I'll try to let's just postpone it, and then maybe I can get with you, and we can work on making sure we have a good connection before we come on. But I don't want to spend the next 30 minutes trying to reconnect over and over again. I've done that many times before. It rarely works. It rarely works. But it looks like she's back one more time, so I can say it directly to her. Hey,
Okay,
Laketa, can you hear me?
in? Yeah, should I call in? Is that better or what?
You know what? If I had my phone lines up, perhaps, but I don't. So this is pretty much the primary way we brought guests on. But I just seems like I just don't want to spend the next 10 minutes trying to sure
connect. I know, right? Yeah. And I was so excited to get on. So I'm hoping fingers crossed maybe this will work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's do it. If it doesn't, then we'll take it from there. Then good. Okay. But you were answering what led you to this point.
Sure. And so as you said, I ran 15 years ago. I was on council 15 years ago. I am the vice president of the Bond Hill Community Council. And we have a lot of issues, exciting issues that are going on in our community and across the city. And one of the reasons why I decided to run again is actually bringing me back to what I was running for in the first place. Is there is not a good connection between connection. You hear that connection? We had the hard connection with this podcast, but we don't feel like the citizens and the council are really connected. This council, I believe, is operating. I'm going to say it and be honest, like the 9 blind mice. They're operating from behind the desk and not really.
Isn't that because they don't have any Republicans, Laketa? Isn't that the problem?
I think the problem is diversity in terms of different. Everyone's
same thing. Yeah.
So everyone's they all just rubber stamping, and it's whatever the king mayor says is what they're doing. I was just talking to someone, and they were talking about we're talking about safety, particularly in Over the Rhine. Where they had not only the stabbing of the guy in the home, but we had the 14-year-old get killed on Washington Park. We had various things that are happening, particularly where the city have put so much money in Over the Rhine, but not one council person has said anything, and they're not talking about bringing back walking patrols. And one of the things is that they have, one of the council members said, well, APTAP said he doesn't like that. Well, APTAP doesn't like it. Well, what community? What about what the residents want? What about safety for our neighborhoods? And that's, what I'm all about. And that's what I've been about, is having access and opening up City Hall. Right now, you can't even get into City Hall without having an appointment. You have closed down City Hall to citizens. How do you do that?
Hey, Laketa, I just want to say, have you heard, you might be interested, have you heard Nathan's let the criminals go theory? I'm just wondering, if you heard that.
I have not heard
another bad joke.
Heard that, and I cannot.
No, this is a point. I'm making a point.
I would never say anything like
that. Phil's not known for putting context around his comments. That's a pretty regular occurrence with him, Laketa. First of all, let me just say hello to my former classmate who graduated from the same great institution that I did. And so I'm a fan, of course, because we go way back, and I'm glad to see you getting back into the political ring. Let me ask you, what do you think you've learned? Because there's been a gap between the time that you last served and now. What do you think you've learned in that time frame that is going to make you, when you look back on the Laketa Cole that served before versus the Laketa Cole that's running now, what can voters and residents expect that you've learned and how you've grown and what you'll bring to another term?
That's a great question. One of the things they can continue to expect is for me to be one of those leaders that is going to continue to step out and speak up. And I think, but what I've learned is about how you do things. You have a 29-year-old versus the 51-year-old mother. And so it's a lot different. And I've come to realize that everything is not always a fight. You may not agree, but you don't necessarily have to fight about it. You can be more diplomatic about it and do it from a collaborative standpoint, and be one who wants to compromise. And I use those C words a lot because that's the beginning of my first name, Cole. So I use collaboration and being a person who can be consistent on the issues and someone who they can rely on. And that's one of the things that I have learned, and also to have more patience. I have mommy patience now, so and I think that's important. Where the 29-year-old had that perspective where it has to be done, it has to be done now, right away, and rah 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 rah. And what I've learned is that I can still get things done, but I can get it done from a patient standpoint. Be more patient about it and be more diplomatic about it. But they can still expect someone who's going to be out in the community, who's not going to shy away from the hard issues, and someone who's going to speak up for them.
Hey, I want to say, Councilwoman Keita, I seen you at the Lincoln Ware day party in the parking lot. So I actually stopped you, like, let me sign your paper there.
Thank you.
And I brought some other people to sign as well. So I'm very excited about your campaign. But I wanted to know, if elected, what would be your top 3 things you would like to tackle for the betterment of the city of Cincinnati?
Sure. The first thing is going back to what I said is access to City Hall. Really opening up City Hall. When I was on council, one of the things I did is I brought the neighborhoods out at a time and location that is convenient to the citizens. And so therefore, instead of waiting for the citizens to, because all of our meetings are in the middle of the day, and the average citizen is working. And so what I like to do is making sure that we continue to open up City Hall and give people access to the legislative body of things. And so having our meetings at least once a month or quarterly out in the community and in the evening so that they can reach it. The other thing that I want to do is tackle this, our entire permitting process. It is a bottleneck if you want to get anything. Right now, they say that our permitting process, and this is how home builders, citizens who want to do work in their homes, get things done. You have to have a permit. Right now, the bottleneck, and they say it's online. I get a permit online, and you have to print it out, fill it out, email it, and then figure it out if they accept it or not. It's 60 days to get anything done, and so I like to really overhaul that. And the other thing that I'm really concerned about is having a small business, not a division, not just a section, but we need to have its own independent division. What I have a problem with, and I don't know if many of you all know, that MBE and the WBE, they're saying that if you are a woman, a minority woman, you are disparity, so therefore you cannot get the WBE. So they have.
Laketa, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Laketa, can you hear me? You know what? I think a great conversation is being spoiled by the audio quality, and I as much as I want to keep it going, I think we should cut it, because as I'm sitting here listening to it, I wouldn't want to listen to it. So I don't want to put the audience through that. And I just really appreciate your time today, but I just feel like it's a waste because we can't really hear you, right? So let's just cut it, and I'll try to get with you, and we'll try to do it another day from a more stable connection. Is that okay? Yeah, that's what I thought too.
That's great. Yeah, I'm in a brunch in the community atmosphere.
I understand.
Maybe next.
That would be probably better, more controlled environment. But it's all good. I really appreciate you. I'll reach out to you.
Okay.
Yep, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys. As I was sitting there, I just detached myself and I listened to it, and I thought, no, I would turn. So if I would turn, I don't want other people doing that. And I could tell it was going to be a good conversation. So why waste it? We'll come back, and we'll just pick up the conversation another time with her. Really appreciate her time. So let me just jump into it. I mean, we're on city council. Is anything there we need to discuss before we roll out? I mean, since we brought the conversation up.
Well, I think the point she raised about having diversity and not just diversity of politics, but diversity of thought. And we talked in the last podcast, or at least touched on it. There's too much groupthink, I think, and what you need to have is more independent thinkers on council, more people who are willing to challenge. I think the notion that she brought up because the mayor doesn't like it, it's not anything that other people should entertain. I'm not, sure how pervasive that is. I'm going off of what she was saying, but if that is indeed, sort of what we're saying here at City Council, it's good to have some people who are pushing back and are not just rubber stamping, as she said, things, simply the mayor's agenda. Just because you've got a Democratic council doesn't necessarily mean that everybody has to be in lockstep and thinking the same. And oftentimes the best ideas come out of conflict and challenges, right? And so you've got to have if you're going to have a Democratic council or whatever makeup of the council, you got to have people who are not just going along to get along, but are really trying to come up with the best efforts for the citizens of Cincinnati. And so I'm excited to hear her say that, and hopefully that'll be something that'll resonate with voters.
I'm looking more for council members that are listening to the people. Diversity of thought, all of that is great, but are you listening to the people and when they come for the body? And so, a lot of people, they take time out of their day, and especially if it's an issue that's concerning to them, and they do their little 2 minutes, and it's just like, is any of that taken account, or does the only thing that really matters is the dollars and funding? And so getting the money out of politics, I think, is helpful, but the people got to feel like they're being heard, especially in times where there is challenging issues, and we're definitely facing some of that now. And so that's more that what I'm looking for in council members. Are they listening?
Yeah, for me, I'm looking for some rabble rousers, for some people that's going to disagree vehemently if necessary.
Well, if you want disagreement, then support some Republicans.
I'm not against that.
I'm serious.
In fact, I would say I'm in favor of that. I would say we need that.
All right.
With the last batch of city council members, we had some big personalities that I just felt like in that friction, in that disagreement, you can learn a lot. That you can figure out what the real perhaps solutions are, and maybe look at it from different angles. So yeah, I miss that. And it is what it is. I really wish that we had a blue state. If we were in a blue state with legislators that actually gave a damn about the city of Cincinnati and was willing to work with this blue city to try to make Cincinnati better, it would be it would be a better lifestyle and quality of life for all of us in greater Cincinnati, but they don't. I want to see them push the limits of what you can do in a blue city in a red state. But that's just me. But I agree. Too much. I want to see you disagree. That's why I wanted Michelle Dillingham. I'm just being honest. I thought she'd be a rabble rouser. I didn't agree with everything, but at least she was going to push them, and I felt it anyway. And if it spilled over publicly, so be it. And we don't have enough of that. We all agree. Okay, we'll see. We'll see. Phil says we need more Republicans. Okay, not so sure about that one.
You want diversity? Now look. You're the guy who wants diversity. I mean, come on. What happened to that?
Now you're pro diversity, huh?
In this case, yeah.
Now you want some DEI.
Yeah, now you want DEI. Okay.
Hey, I'm selective. I'm selective. What can I say?
How about you want at least 4 or 5 Republicans as a quota on the council now?
Yeah, give or take.
You in favor of council? Go ahead, Phil.
I was going to say, when you say you want some rabble rousers, let me tell you something. I served on council with the most rabble-rousing group you could ever imagine, okay? I started out, there was Tom Lucan. If you remember him, may he rest in peace. Dwight Tillery, Charlie Winburn, Tyrone Yates, Todd Portune, Roxanne Qualls, and me. I think that's it. And I can tell you.
That's a cast.
That's an all-star team right there.
Yeah.
That's a sitcom right there.
Not in a good way. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a sitcom right there. What y'all had.
It's true. You want to know what's going on. You want rabble rousers. Okay, so Dwight Tillery, when I got on it, just lost. He was the mayor, and then which was the top vote getter at the time. He lost to Roxanne Qualls. All right, and Dwight Tillery spent the next 2 years doing everything he could to undermine Roxanne Qualls. I mean, he was so ticked off, about that. And so there were these groups that was. There was a little bit too much rabble rousing, I would say. And the other thing, there was more. It was like infighting constantly. And the other thing is that everybody knows when you get on council, everybody wants press. Okay, and it becomes a contest sometime of who can say the more outrageous thing to get the press. And so I understand that you want somebody who's kind of going to shake things up, but I think, and in all due respect, I think particularly my first term, I shook things up, but I always tried to do it in a way that was, positive things for the city and stuff like that, and not just, getting my face on TV.
Okay, sounds good. I'll take that. Let's move on. All right, let's start somewhere. We're gonna start in a weird place, but why are Republicans now referring to Trump as daddy? That's a thing. That's like a real thing.
You don't know where it comes from?
I've got some thoughts.
No. It comes.
That was just a preamble. I've got some thoughts.
Okay, but I'll tell you where it comes from. It comes from just a couple days ago. The head of NATO, he went to that NATO conference.
Yeah.
Right, and the head of NATO, or the new head, who is obviously just trying to kiss up to Trump by flattering him, says all these wonderful things about him and throws in the daddy comment. That's where it came from.
Well, no, it predates that. Republicans.
Well, it may, but that's the one that's gotten all the attention the last few days.
But what I'm saying is, there's like a real movement. There's even a Republican congressman who who wants to kind of make it official. He joked about it. Like, this is like a big thing on Fox News. They're all referring to him as Daddy Trump now. And at the same time, they're saying it's not a cult. We're living in so now Trump is selling these t-shirts. Always the capitalist is now selling these t-shirts because it's gonna make the libs, it's gonna make Democrats crazy. Yeah. And at this point, I'm almost immune to the circus. Right.
Well, if you're immune to that,
I'm waiting for the end. Like the circus, it comes and goes.
But these are the things that Trump thrives off of, right? Like he does. These are little trolling things. In addition to it being him seizing on every opportunity that he can to make a buck. And I wouldn't be mad at him if he wasn't the president of the United States, right? This is brilliant. I mean, you take a situation like that, you turn it into t-shirts, you sell billions of them, you make a buck. It would be great if he was still, Donald Trump, the businessman who was not the president of the United States. I think it diminishes the office by him doing that as the president. But these are just little trolling things that I think Trump and his folks do to get at liberals, because they know that liberals and the media can't resist this type of catnip, right? That it's a conversation that gets under their skin, the ridiculousness, but it doesn't really, in the grand scheme, it doesn't really mean anything. The things that we need to spend time talking about are Donald Trump trying to cut people's Medicaid, Donald Trump deporting people, like all of these things I see are just distraction tactics. Look, we already know that MAGA is a cult. How many times do you got to say that? How many times do you got to repeat it? Saying it over and over again is not going to make a dent in the people who are a part of it. So it's quite frankly, to me, it's just a waste of time. And these are the distractions that Trump throws out there to get liberals and the media to spend a day or half a day that you spend, or any time you spend talking about Trump being daddy, is less time that you spend about things that he's doing that are actually impacting folks.
I think the Congress, or the Republican Congress, more or less should be embarrassed. And for his team or administration, whoever, to put this t-shirt out, I mean, it's really a call out to all of them, because he's sunning all of them, even with this big ugly bill that's about to move forward. he's going to go. He won it by the 4th of July, so he's going to go and cuss them out, because that's usually the process. You have one or two that act like they're on the fence, and they're listening to their constituents, and they're thinking about maybe voting the opposite way, but then they all fall in line in the end, and all of them are complicit, complacent, and cowards. And so at the end of the day, what it says, of course, yeah, they're acting very cultish. We see that, but it speaks to our Congress right now, who has no backbone. They're giving away their power. Even the Supreme Court, what happened today? I mean, everyone is just forfeiting their power, making the equal branches of government very unequal in a way. But to be MAGA, it doesn't matter if he's a convicted felon. It doesn't matter if he has all these conflict of interest. It doesn't matter if he's violating people's constitutional rights. The only thing that matters to them is not being loyal. The moment you're not loyal, you're out. And so that just says something about the party, that you're more for the party than for this country. You're more for this party than the Constitution. And so if anyone should be embarrassed about a T-shirt that says "Daddy," it should be this Congress that is complacent, complicit, and cowards.
Hey, I'm not calling no other man that ain't my biological daddy. I'm gonna just put it like that. If you call another man daddy, you a sucker. I mean, I just gotta say that. That's just the bottom line. And I think that to TNT's point, we got a bunch of suckers in Congress, who are kissing up to this dude and whatever, and it is what it is. It's not a surprise, though. It's not a new revelation, I guess, for me at the end of the day.
Next, they're gonna have a T-shirt with knee pads. I mean, that might be too much, but
Your thoughts, Phil?
I did a podcast on this the other day. Do you know right now in Congress, there is and these are legitimate bills, not just somebody saying, there is a bill to put Trump's face on the $100 bill. There is a bill to rename Dulles Airport Trump Airport. By the way, I'll tell you one that's just, the metro system in Washington is called, I don't know, Met something or other. They want it, this is a legitimate bill. They want to change the name to Trump's Train. Okay? This is no joke. But the topper, and these are real bills, there's somebody who's got a bill in to put his face on Mount Rushmore.
I didn't say that. I waited to say that.
I mean, some people have no shame. I agree with everything Nicole said. Some people have no shame.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Well, and it's a very good likelihood that all of those things could happen. I no longer doubt Donald Trump's power and pull and the destructive power of a lot of people who believe in nonsense. So yeah, and sometime within these 4 years or maybe afterward, I can certainly see Donald Trump's face on Mount Rushmore. And you know what? That'll be exactly what we deserve for allowing this fool and these Republicans to get back in office and do all of the things that we see them doing. So I think I hear what everybody's saying, but to me, I think there's a collective brainwashing that's going on right now. And that's the reason why I think you got to push back on even the daddy stuff, because there is a brainwashing about the truth, about history, and who Donald Trump is and what he's capable of doing that's going on right in front of our eyes. And a lot of people are playing a part in it because they want to be close to the king, right? Dictatorship sucks unless you're in the royal family. Then it's everything. You're like a god on earth, right? So you got a lot of people that have that motivation to play along because they want to get something out of it. So all that stuff could happen. Go ahead, Phil.
From what I've heard, I just skimmed it because it just came out. Some of these decisions by today's Supreme Court are absolutely horrific in terms of giving him unbelievable power. I don't know if you know how they worked this, but originally it sounded like they were appealing his birthright citizenship, but they actually dropped that, okay? And the way they changed it is that they argued, and the Supreme Court agreed with them, that if a federal judge issues an order, like you can't deport people without a hearing, the way it's always been is that applies to the whole country. But what they're now have ruled is it only applies to that jurisdiction. So you know what that means? That means that people are going to have to file suits in like almost every county or every jurisdiction of the country. I mean, it's so outrageous. And their excuse was, well, you can do a class action. But by the way, Alito in one of his dissents kind of said, yeah, but it's really tough. You better not try it because it's really tough to get a class action approved, which is true. So I mean, it's a horrific situation because he can do illegal stuff, and all the courts can do to stop him is only in those jurisdictions where that particular judge presides over.
Yeah, I mean, as I've been saying, you're already in a dictatorship. The only question is, are we going to stay in it or crawl the way back out? You're looking at a 40, 50-year plan that's all come together. We get to watch it in front of us. You know, allowing Donald Trump to be a two-term president, to put all the people he put in the Supreme Court. I mean, you got conservative elements that have been doing that. They've wanted that for 50 years. They've been planning for this. It's everybody else, black folks, just running around not understanding what the larger plot is, talking about Hillary Clinton had hot sauce in her purse, so she was pandering. So now you don't want to vote for her. Meanwhile, the Republicans have a diabolical plan that means you no good whatsoever, and you allowed them to do that because Hillary Clinton back in the 90s said something about black kids. It's just astounding to me how easily people just gave up their democracy. But we are where we are now, bros. We're gonna have to roll this out. We are where we are. And
But
go ahead, Kevin.
no. I just wanted to hit on that point. Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about this a lot, about how bad people are about negotiating sort of like the odds. You know what I'm saying? Like what's better for you versus getting caught up in, like the minute details. And he talks about like people will focus in on the smallest, most insignificant things as a reason to ignore the larger picture. So sort of the things that you talk about is like you get hung up in these smaller things. And this is where MAGA has excelled, where liberals are frustrated. MAGA will say, I don't care that Donald Trump is not well spoken or he sounds like a idiot. I don't care that Donald Trump says some of these outrageous things or he's not the nicest person. What I'm looking at is what he's going to do, right? Or what they think he's going to do that benefits him. All of the rest of that stuff, the 34 felony counts, the racism, all of these other things that liberals are hung up on that drive them crazy, that they hate. MAGA says, we don't care about any of that stuff. We're looking at the policy, what we think he can do. Liberals cannot do that. Democrats cannot do that. They can't look at the larger, bigger picture, because if there's one thing that they don't like about you, or one thing that doesn't fit, into their idea of what this perfect candidate is, right? Like they'll get off of your bus and won't look at the larger picture. They won't vote. They won't show up at the polls. Trump people gonna show up regardless. And until liberals learn to look at the bigger picture of what you got to try to get done, the progressive agenda or whatever you want to call it, you got to be willing to overlook some flaws in a candidate
But
to
you're
look
wrong
at the
about
law. To look at the. I'm not wrong about it, Nathan.
You are wrong. But let me tell you how I think you're wrong.
Nathan, you just got done saying how many.
So I'm an example that disproves your point. That's
No, Nathan. I'm talking about the larger point. You just got done talking about all of the people who didn't want to vote for Hillary
I said
Clinton.
black people. You're talking about liberals, and that's where you're making a mistake.
Well,
liberals voted for Kamala Harris. 18% of black people voted for Trump. I'm targeting them folks. Liberals, they all voted for Harris and Biden.
Yeah, I look. All I know is that you're right. There were black people who stayed at home, but I'm not just going to put it all on black people, because there were a lot of white people that stayed home too and didn't vote too. I'm not going to put that just on. I'm not going to just put that just on black people. That's why
I was making a point about the black people that got so outraged about Hillary Clinton. She went on the Breakfast Club. She had a bottle of hot sauce. Hillary Clinton back in the 90s, she said, bring him the heel. And at the time, I'm thinking that don't matter. Look at what they're trying to do to the Supreme Court. So I was specifically talking about just those people, just so we're clear.
Yeah. No, I'm not disagreeing with you on that, but I'm just saying I'm not just going to limit it to black people. I think Democrats in general have this sort of, we talk about the litmus test that Republicans have, but Democrats have it too. And Democrats is maybe a little bit where they're on the opposite end of the extreme of where MAGA is, where MAGA is just like, we don't care about anything. Democrats care about everything. Like, you got to be this perfect, almost flawless.
No. I got to disagree. Voice of reason.
I'm telling you.
A little bit.
Well, when you're done, let me have something to say, because I agree with the voice of reason.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
What we're seeing is a double standard, because trust and believe, anything that Trump is doing right now, if that was Barack Obama or Biden, they would have a field day. What Republicans do, they do very well in controlling the narrative. And so, this back and forth, it isn't like they have lost their moral compass. They know what he's doing is wrong. They just don't care. And so
that's what I just said.
That's a real difference when you have a party that holds people accountable when they're doing something wrong or out of place, versus a party that just right, wrong, or indifferent. You are a man. We're going to just roll with it. And I mean, you see the way these.
Yeah, but you're complaining. You're not coming up with a solution. You're just complaining, which is a legitimate complaint. But you're not saying how Democrats or people who are against Trump can fight and stop him. You're not saying that.
You fight by controlling the narrative. You fight by keeping the truth and not the alternative truth. They're going to keep pulling out all these different alternative truths or what Truth Social. I mean, the mere fact that we have to find out about things that's going on Truth Social. You know what I mean? Like, it's only his truth. And then even these press conferences today, it's just such a farce. Like, if the Democrats control the narrative, if they do a better job with their social media and just speaking out and speaking the truth, and in a lot of ways they are doing that, and they are winning some of these recent races or whatnot, just speaking to the needs of what everyday people are going to learn. Like my grandma said, the hard way. Sometimes some of us have to learn the hard way. And when they feel the impact of their decisions by a complete lunatic, like, to even listen to him is just awful. Why would anybody sit up here and take him seriously? We can't even believe anything the White House really says, the defense secretary or anything, because it's all a bunch of just pulling it out of the air, Fox News propaganda, and it's too partisan, it's too political, and it's not serious. And so it's really just a circus right now. But real people, and they see it on both sides. Just they're treating politics like a sports. Like, oh, I'm the Bengals and this is Pittsburgh, and no matter what, I'm with my team. And so, but you can't treat politics, because politics impact us. This ain't just feel good entertainment. This impacts our lives. And what's about to happen with that big ugly bill, when people feel the impacts of that, they're going to understand it's going to be a long, long time before Republicans or MAGA is going to be able to get back in office. And they will see you laugh now, but you're going to cry later.
But TNT, here's what I would say. Everything that you just said is, why does it take for people to have to feel that impact to snap back in, right? Everything that you just said was all things Kamala Harris and the Democrats tried to say beforehand, but voters wasn't trying to hear it. And that's on both sides. There were people who defected over from the Democrats and voted for Trump. I'm not disagreeing with what you said. I'm not suggesting that liberals need to become like MAGA and saying, like, hey, anything goes, like we nominate a convicted felon. I'm not even suggesting. It don't even take it for it to get to that sometimes before liberals will jump off your ship and cast you out. Democrats will do it for far less than that. Nathan, you just said it. You got black folks. Hey, she had hot sauce in her purse, or whatever it is, or Kamala ain't all the way black. Look, this is the type of stuff that I'm talking about that liberals will abandon a candidate for. You
But
can't lie
that's
and
where
say
you
that.
keep going wrong, bro. You keep saying they're liberal.
They're not.
You are
Okay,
mischaracterizing
who?
that demographic. They don't
Okay,
identify as liberal. That's why I keep saying you're wrong. Those aren't liberals. Liberals, and the other mischaracterization is that if you're a liberal, you have to all be in love with a candidate. That ain't true. I've never met a candidate ever.
hey man,
Barack Obama,
come on,
Kamala
man.
Harris, Joe
That is
Biden.
endemic.
I've
That is
never met a
endemic of
candidate
Democrats.
that I was
Man,
one. No, it's
look,
not. That's
Yes, it
that's
is,
endemic
Nathan.
of what the
Democrats have a
conservatives want you
hard
to think
time.
about Democrats, but
Democrats
that
have
is
a
not
hard
true
time holding
whatsoever.
their nose and
And I'm a
going to
great
the
example
polls.
of it. I'm a great example of it. There's a lot of people out there. Don't tell me that I was all in love with Kamala Harris and I had no. You
I'm
don't
not
know what
talking
I'm
about
thinking.
you. See, that's what you're doing.
But
You're
what I'm saying is,
personalizing. You're
there's a lot of
personalizing
people
it.
like that,
Everybody out there
Kevin.
ain't like you.
There's a
Everybody
lot.
out there ain't like you.
Everybody out there is like that. Everybody's like that. There is no Democrat
No,
and
you
many
can't say that,
Republicans
Nathan. You can't say
that are
that.
100% in love with anybody. We all know
You
it's
can't
a
say
devil's
that.
bargain to run for office. We know you got to give this to take that. I've never seen anybody slate that I agree
Democrats
with
gotta
100%.
have the feels. They gotta feel warm and fuzzy about you, or they can't vote. I just can't get excited about this candidate. He doesn't
He's going
excite me. Man, come on,
TNT,
you better vote for some
TNT,
policy. Put your feelings on the shelf.
TNT, this is a great example, Phil, everybody. This is a great example of my problem with mainstream media. They do too much of this. And they say stuff like this. Instead, they won't tell you that MAGA's a cult that's not based on any facts. It's all feelings for Donald Trump, right? But they'll tell you that Democrats got to be in their fields. Please stop. What's going on with you, Kevin? It's like three shows in a row. Hold on,
may
Phil.
I
Hold
give
on,
my
Phil.
perspective on this?
It's like 3 shows in a row. Kevin is going through a MAGA phase. And I'm
I'm
your
not.
friend.
I'm just speaking.
Maybe-
I'm speaking
hold it,
truth,
maybe
bro.
he's
The hardest thing for liberals. I'm trying to give liberals hard truths that they need to hear if they want to win. This is why you're not winning, and you fail to understand it. This is why Donald Trump keeps getting elected, and you're just sitting there. I don't understand why he's getting elected because you don't want to listen.
He did.
That's why.
Once again, you gloss on the fact that he lost to Joe Biden, but I understand. That's what mainstream media does these days. They hyper focus on the flaws of Democrats, and they throw their hands up when it comes
It's not
to
a question of flaws. It's a question of what is the strategy to beat Donald Trump?
Vote Democrat. It's real simple.
No. Obviously. But the question is, I think what we're talking about is what do I'll say Democrats. So I'm obviously anti-Trump. What are Democrats, anti-Trump people? What can they do? What is their best strategy? Obviously, it's get more votes.
Right.
But I'll just offer mine, and this may be somewhat consistent with Kevin's. I'm not sure, but the thing that we have to be aware of is when somebody says something, a Democrat in New York says something fairly extreme, like reparations, defund the police, or something
You're
about
in trouble already.
I know that. I know you don't agree.
How is reparations extreme?
Would you let me finish, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, again,
say that for the black
I'm not arguing the issues. What I'm saying is when the reason why people who are in blue districts, or I should say like Congress people, like Ocasio-Cortez, people like that, and because these districts are gerrymandered, the only way she is going to lose if somebody beats her from the left. That's the only way. Just like in districts like the one I ran in, or a lot around here, the only way a Republican's going to lose is if they beat him from the right. Okay? But the problem is, again, this isn't whether one agrees or disagrees with reparations, but you have to face the fact that saying things like reparations, defund the police, transgender operations for prisoners, whatever the hell it is, even though that's only being uttered by people on the far left of the Democratic Party, the Republicans use that to stain all the Democrats. All of them. And so let me finish. Let me finish. Okay. I'm trying to talk about how to win, not what we like or don't like. So what I'm saying is that what we need is the Democrats frankly on the far left who are pushing stuff like this that absolutely offends the majority of voters that make the difference, the ones in the middle. You may not agree with this, but I'll guarantee you the vast middle of voters do not want reparations, whether you and I do or not. Okay.
When you
And
say
so
middle,
what I
define
am
the middle.
saying, I'm going to finish in just a second. What I'm saying is that if we really believe that Donald Trump is the greatest threat we're facing now, we need to put our own issues aside, like the far left stuff, even though it helps them in their district. We need to put that aside, and all of us decide we are going to focus on beating Donald Trump, and to do it, we're going to modify some things that are helping him, because anything we say in New York, New Jersey, or wherever, they're going to use it against every Democrat.
No.
Yeah.
Just no. All of it. No.
I'm kind of flabbergasted. I wish you didn't use the example of reparations, because that's kind of touchy for me.
That just
well,
the whole
it's
argument.
touchy for you,
That's
maybe.
personal. That's personal for me. Just like
Well,
the Holocaust and
I
everything.
understand that.
Personal,
I'm not
because
saying it isn't.
and I understand that there's a segment of the society, and that's why it's taken so
The
long.
ones in the middle
to
that
do
decide the
something.
elections, they're the ones.
Yeah. Well, and what does that say about them? What does that say?
It may say they're horrible
You're
people,
so
but I'm
hell-bent
saying,
in
do we
making
want to win, or
sure.
you want to criticize those people? I'm saying, look, they're horrible people.
Why do they want to criticize us? Why do they want to? Why do they not want to reconcile and make things right with African Americans?
What is they don't like reparations, and so what I'm saying is, if you are involved in election, Nicole, what I'm saying is, it might help you, and I don't say you don't believe 100% of reparations, and maybe they're right, but what I'm saying is that kind of stuff
what
is
campaign led on reparations in the history of whatever. What presidential campaign that was Democrat has ever led on reparations?
I think what Phil's point is. Phil's point is not saying that the candidate even has to lead with it or say it. What he's saying is that let's just say AOC mentions it in a speech that she does. What the Republicans are very good at doing is tagging whatever a Democrat says to the entirety of the whole party. So if one Democrat says, hey, I think they should be able to allow to have abortion right up to birth, right? Then that becomes the tagline.
Americans are Democrats. So why would it be off the table if that's part of our interest?
Because the middle decides the elections.
But this is what it's not
you
even
can't win an election without African Americans either.
No,
so
I'm not saying
if Democrats abandon,
I'm not saying discard. I'm saying don't use
the
issues
Democratic Party,
don't
they would
use.
never win again.
Here's the reality of it. Since we have delved down this reparations rabbit hole, here is the reality of what I always say about reparations is not extreme. It's particularly not extreme if you're a Black person. But here's the reality of reparations, and that has many different connotations in terms of what that means, depending on who you're talking to and what that looks like. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, reparations means giving a check, to Black people in this country, which is a lot of times how that gets framed, and how white America hears it, whether you're Republican or Democrat. My argument is that it's not that reparations are extreme or not that they're called for, but it's that we'll never get them because white Americans, Democrat and Republican, ain't gonna have it.
Well, it's that they're viewed. Don't you think they're viewed as extreme? Isn't that the issue? It isn't whether it's extreme. They're viewed as extreme by the people that decide national elections.
Treaties for Native Americans. We've done that. We've even recently paid reparations for
You're arguing the issue. That's not the point.
Holocaust survivors during the Obama administration. He did that. You know what I mean? And slave owners back in Abraham Lincoln, he gave reparations to the slave owners before the slaves. We're
not arguing the issue.
Thing, I know, but I'm just saying everything that's happened for African Americans has always been encompassed with everybody. Everybody gets to enjoy the labor of our fight for civil rights and everything else. Women, LGBTQ. It's never been anything just singly for African Americans. But you have recent things like when the Chinese people were getting beat up, they made a bill specifically. It wasn't incumbent on everybody. It was specifically for them. And when things are happening to the Jewish community, they're asking for things, specific protections just for them. Not that it's hate happening to everybody, but they're asking specific just for them. And nobody sit up there like, why shouldn't you watch people? I don't even understand like the coalitions of like why people can't come together on these things when it's wrong and it's impacting people in a negative way, but you can see it for some sides, but you can't see it for others. That's like
it's not that they don't see it. That's the mistake that you're
have.
making.
The lack of discernment is horrible.
It's not a lack of discernment,
It
TNT.
is.
It's not. It's not.
Yourself
It's not. That's
in the
the
shoes
mistake
of
that you
others.
make. The mistake that you make is the assumption that you assume that the reason why people don't support it or stand up for it is because they don't see it. That's not what it is. What I keep trying to tell people is the relationship that Black people have with this country is different than any other group. So you want to talk about Chinese people, Jewish people, the circumstances of their mistreatment or whatever is not the same. Is not the same as Black people. We don't have the same history. The relationship is not the same. The bitterness, even the ingrained hate is not the same in this country. And you got to recognize that as a Black person. So yes, what I'm saying is they don't see, the white people who are never going to allow this to happen don't see it as the same. They're fine with giving Chinese people reparations. They're fine with giving Indian people reparations. They're fine with giving women and gays what they want. But what they're not going to do, because of what is ingrained in our country, is give Black people anything, because the message will always be to us, quit crying victim.
The struggle does not have to be the same in order to feel the impact of being wronged by this country. This country in law has enforced things that have impacted us negatively, where the impact is generational. So it doesn't have to be exactly the same for a country to understand that they have to reconcile the wrongs that they've done. And so whatever wrong you've done to Japanese Americans, whatever wrong was done to Jewish Americans, whatever wrong was done to Native Americans, it doesn't have to be an exact content, but 400 years slavery and Jim Crow and everything.
So what does it have to do with defeating Donald Trump? That's what I'm asking. What
Well,
does this
I
have
mean,
to
you
do?
brought it up.
out there said that this is what the narrative that Democrats run on, and as soon as they start talking about that,
No,
that's when
you're
they
not.
lose
You're not.
everybody.
You're
And
misunderstanding
even if
me.
they mention it, they're going to lose everybody. So what I'm hearing you say is that don't even mention that. Which is what they've always done, and this is part of the reason why African Americans are on like a thin thread with Democrats, because they're always telling us to wait. Hold on, just wait. We've waited. You know what I mean? And you sit up here and say, in this moment now, with everything that's impacting us, and civil rights is literally being yanked out of everything people work so hard to do, and you want to sit up here and tell the Democratic Party that how they should lead is stepping away from a portion of their base and the things that they're interested in. Are you crazy?
No, I'm not crazy. It's a priority thing, Nicole. My number one priority, and I think everyone, especially Democrats, should be the one issue is to preserve our democracy and get rid of Donald Trump and the MAGA thing. That, in my opinion,
that was Kamala Harris' platform, democracy, and she lost.
She lost exactly. And
so I mean, it really people.
I don't think
forget about what you say, but
they'll
right. Remember how you treat them and the impact. And so people, like I said, it's going to have to learn the hard way, because everything she prophesied, well, not even prophesied, but she said all the things that was going to happen. Project 2025, all of this is coming into play.
And she lost.
Never again. And she lost. So people just had to learn the hard way and see for themselves. And once they feel the impact, because people will never forget how you made them feel and what you've done to them, they're going to come back with a force. And that's the power that people are forgetting. It's the power of the people. There's the legislative, there's the judicial, there's the executive, but then there is the power of the people. And it don't matter if you got Elon Musk money. Elon Musk money can't take over the power of the people. And once that happens, it
did in the last election.
Well, I mean, a lot of things happened. The narrative around it was the spin cycle was a bit much, but people, all you could do is learn from past mistakes, and then everything that happened with just the rush flip of a candidate from Biden to Harris, that has never happened. That has never ever happened. And the way he got in there, he didn't get in by very much, and people want to make it seem like it's a landslide. It really wasn't. The Congress is held up by like a favor of one or two. They have to all be in line to get anything passed. But just the way things are going right now, they're going to have their way. And so when people see, when it's time to vote again, when that energy, that's what you see in these protests, the no kings and everything else, people are ready. They are, only thing they can do is some sort of, crazy thing with trying to, which what they're doing now is as much as they can to shave off votes. That's the only way. But first order of business, Democrats need to come up with their project 29. You know what I'm saying? What they're going to do. And some of that has to deal with the gerrymandering, like what y'all said earlier, the End Citizens United, get the money out of politics, and just some of the things that the people we voted for, 60 or 70%, we are in favor of, and the Congress completely ignores the people. We all of our rights are being stripped away. Even what happened with the Supreme Court and what the judgment that they place down now, it's just making it harder for everyday people to get these unconstitutional actions against us to stop. Like now it's one by one, each state, each jurisdiction, they're just trying to drain our pockets, make the process slower, and slow things down for this nonsense. None of this is normal. None of this is normal that's happening right now.
And
if
a Democrat wins,
not paying attention.
And if a Democrat wins, you can better believe that conservatives will have a test case that they can immediately shoot straight back to the Supreme Court, where they can reverse it and they'll go the opposite way. You don't have fair players on the Supreme Court level. And so I'd love to say we need to put together a 50-year plan, but Republicans are quietly and loudly, in some cases, slamming the doors of who controls power behind them and fortifying themselves on the side of power. So I don't know if we'll ever see a swing to the left in the Supreme Court.
Sure, you will, but again, you talk about a 50-year plan. That's what the Republicans had. They had a 50-year plan, and while Democrats were celebrating Obama's win and all of this other kind of stuff and thinking that they had slammed the door on the old days, the Republicans have been plotting exactly what you've got now to today. And what they recognize is if we can control the Supreme Court, these judgeships and everything else, we can lock in our power. Even if we are in the cultural minority, we can still run stuff, right? And that is exactly what they've set up. And Democrats not only have to be thinking about the next election, they got to be thinking about the next 8, 9, 10 elections. They need to be playing that long-term game like the Republicans played on them. Republicans, they lost, right? There were some periods where they lost. And they lost badly, right? The 2 terms of Obama, man, you couldn't be in the tank any more than the Republican Party was. They had been beaten in back-to-back elections by a Democrat. They were in a low place then. Low place, like how a lot of Democrats are feeling right now with Trump. And so you can move beyond that, but it has to be a long-term plan. The other thing I'll say is that Black people in this country are sort of like people without a country, right? People without a country, and I would dare say without a real party. Because here's the thing. Even as much as Black people vote for Democrats, we are still a very small minority part of the party. Now, it's true, they can't win without us, but we never get the leverage out of our vote from the Democrats that we should get. The Republicans sure ain't enough trying to cater to you or offering you anything. So you can't go there, even though some Black people foolishly do go there. There's nothing that the Republicans offer to you or try to cater to you as a Black person, whether that's economically, social justice wise, or whatever. So I don't understand people who go over there because they're not even trying to talk to you, speak to you, visit your neighborhoods, or any of that type of thing.
To be a unicorn.
So the only alternative Black people have is the Democratic Party. And I will say this. There's been progress. Nobody can deny that. But there's been as many Democrats in control of the presidency and the House and Congress in my lifetime as there have been Republicans. Yet we still talk about some of the same issues that we were talking about when I was a little boy, right? And in many ways, it's gotten worse. Black wealth ain't gotten better. The gap has gotten worse, actually. And we're talking about black people not having any net wealth by what, 2030 or something like that? So you can't just blame all of that on the Republicans. What that tells me is you got a lot of Democrats or a lot of the functions within the Democratic Party that's blocking too, that's blocking progress too. And a lot of that is because we don't show up in force. TNT talks about power.
That's
to
because they're
people.
pro-capitalist. You know, the reason why is because Democrats are pro-capitalist too. And to solve a lot of the problems that working class people and black people have, you have to come up with some policies that counteract the effects, right? Socialism, right? Things like that. We got to think outside the box in ways that challenge our obsession with capitalism to really help these people. And Democrats are just as much capitalists as Republicans are.
Yeah, but here's the leverage to TNT's point. Here's the leverage that black people have that we don't use effectively. And I've said this. Democrats can't win without black people. They can't. They can't. They cannot win without black people.
Where?
They won't win.
The problem is they can't win with black people. That's the problem.
No, I disagree with that.
In 2024, would you agree? They had the vast majority of black vote. They didn't have as many as before.
No, what they didn't have, Phil, and this is my point, where we kind of started on this, what we didn't have was black people who turned out in large numbers. They don't vote in large numbers. Part of Barack Obama's mandate came because black people came out of the woodwork and voted. And you ain't seen black turnout in an election since like that, before or since. Right. So that lets you know that it's out there, and that lets you know that if black folks show up in numbers like that, it ain't even close. It's a landslide. It's a mandate. So Democrats absolutely can win with black people. And the mistake that they make is they don't invest enough in giving the black people who don't vote for them enough reasons to come out and vote for them. Look, you got black folks who just loyal to the Democrat Party. They're going to vote for Democrats come hell or high water, no matter what.
Same with white people to the Republican Party.
Well, yeah, absolutely. That's what party politics is. But there are a whole lot of black people who are out there who are not convinced to vote Democrat, even when it's in their best interest to do so. And that's because the Democrats have not done a good enough job of giving those black people a reason to vote. Barack Obama was a reason to vote for a lot of people simply because of this. I mean, there were a lot of people.
And he was a man.
I'm not saying that Barack Obama wasn't qualified. He didn't deserve to be that. But a lot of black folks came out and voted because they were excited about the prospect of a black president.
No other reason than president. That. If he was a woman, she wouldn't have won.
Well, sure, we can throw in that
qualifier. Same with
white
women, like Hillary ran, and she didn't win. So it's still like a gap for women to break that ceiling.
And Hillary got 20,000 fewer black votes, in various places than Barack Obama got.
So in a lot of ways, a lot of these minorities, we're just now breaking the ceiling on things that have been long held by white men in general, and so and I just don't understand the divide. Like, why is that an issue if not 80% of the things we agree upon, and it's 2 or 3, I don't agree with everything with everybody, but like 20% we don't agree. Why is that enough for you to be like, I'm going over to MAGA? Like, MAGA understands me. Like, they understand the part of just like taking down DEI and taking away Black history, and that's what you agree. Because a lot of that stuff seems like it's cringeworthy when he started doing the things that he said he was going to do. I've seen so many white people just like, I don't really agree with that. I just don't. But you voted for him. But it's just like I guess because you didn't put yourself in that shoe. It really didn't impact you, or you really didn't believe he was going to do the things he said he was going to do, or maybe you did. You just didn't care, but didn't think it was going to be this cruel. But he said this, and so I don't understand. Like, you can feel however you feel about reparations, or you can feel however you feel about DEI or whatever. But is that enough to say that MAGA was the better choice?
I made that same point primarily to Black people, but can I move on and bring another topic in, because we've been on this for a minute.
All right.
Something maybe a little not. I was gonna say lighter, but it's really not lighter. But the Diddy trial, we haven't talked about this in a while on the pod. You know, the updates is I believe he had some of his charges were dropped, and as we speak right now, his lawyers are delivering their closing arguments. Diddy never took the trial. Not sure how much you've been paying attention or not, but I just want to share one observation I got from this, or a feeling I got, and that is that people who are rich and powerful, they do stuff like this. This, I think there's something in human nature. I would like to say men, but if I'm being honest, I bet you there's probably a wealthy woman through the annals of time who's probably done the same stuff. And this is the reason why a lot of people want to be rich. Like this stuff that's happening with Diddy and what we see he was doing with Cassie and bringing women in and the baby oil and just really living out all his freaky fantasies. That's the reason why a lot of people want to be rich, so they can do exactly what Diddy was doing, right? I mean, let's be honest with it. This ain't just Diddy. There's a long list of wealthy people that when they get money, they want to use that money to get their freak off and do all the little fantasy stuff they always wanted to do and force people to do stuff like this. There's something about human nature that's on display here. And the easiest thing in the world to do is say it's just Diddy, but that ain't true. That's something about human nature. Something about human nature. Like when people think they got the upper hand, how they treat you. When you got a lot of money, you're dealing with somebody that doesn't. What's the nature of your relationship? It seems like in a lot of cases, in some cases, not a lot, in some cases, it seems like it's exploitive. And maybe that's the nature of the power dynamics. When you got more and they got less, it goes your way.
Can I share a little bit about the legal situation in the trial?
Yeah. But let me finish real quick. It all goes your way. So, that's kind of what I'm picking up from Diddy. Like Diddy had a lot of money and he was making people around him, primarily women, do whatever he wanted them to do because he was the boss. He had all the money. He had all the control. He was famous. A lot of people gravitate to people with money. And, on some cases, they end up with a fate similar to Cassie and, some of the other people that testified about Diddy forcing them, or not forcing, but coercing them into sexual acts while he watched. But am I wrong in this? I mean, what did you get? What do you get out of this?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Here's what I would say is, and here's my qualifier. If you don't have a good moral compass and you don't have standards, whether you're Diddy or the people that he victimized, you can find yourself in a situation. I don't think this is just necessarily a product with money. Money only enhances. It's like alcohol. Money only enhances what you already got inside of you, right? It makes you more. It can make you more of who you already are. So I agree with you from the standpoint, Nathan, of if you have these proclivities, like if you are a womanizer and somebody who gets off on flexing your power, of course, if you've got millions of dollars, that's only going to allow you to do that much more. And people who crave that, right, whether it's men or women, look, people who get in proximity to these folks make these choices. People will say, well, Diddy force them to do. No. Everybody has a choice, right? Unless he got a gun in your head or unless he got people that's holding you down, forcibly making you do these things, like forcibly raping people or doing things like that. You have a choice to walk away. But what it is the desire for fame, the desire to be in proximity to fame, the desire to have wealth yourself will allow people to compromise themselves in ways that they later regret. And sometimes, can't recover from. And so I think, this is a question of where somebody is at spiritually, morally, what your values are, because I will say this, there are people who have a lot of money who don't do what Diddy did, right? They do the right stuff. They help people.
Absolutely.
That's because they have a more solid base. But if you don't have that, you're going to get buck wild if you got money. You're going to do whatever that money allows you to be able to do. What I would do with $50 million as a 50-year-old man today is very different than what I would have done with $50 million at 22. $50 million.
And don't tell us. We don't want to know what you would have done.
$50 million kid might have had some Diddy parties too. I'm just gonna be honest with you.
A man of God.
I don't believe
I knew God, but I wasn't a man of God when I was 22. I was out there. I was in them streets.
I gotta cover my ears.
So,
this is killing. I put you on a pedestal, and now I hear these things.
I keep it real. That's part of the testimony. That's part of the journey. Where I was at 22 ain't where I'm at today. That's my point. I think people are who they are, and money only enhances that.
I don't know. This whole case is kind of tricky. So I feel one way, there's not enough evidence for like what's being charged for racketeering. Did he actually use Bad Boys as, the network to kind of do crimes, or was he really a producer, and everything? We've known him for all this time. And I think, of course, with the fame, you do kind of exuberant things. He's a narcissist. A lot's going to his head. Some of these, get-togethers were consensual, but there is part of the law where consent can change. So in the one incident with the video, that was supposed to be one of those freak-offs where Cassie was, where they had a video of Diddy like grabbing her by the head and everything else. She was trying to get away. So, I mean, you can almost say that was a time where she said no. And when you say no, I don't want to do this, or your consent has ended, and then you're physically being brought back like, no, you're not. Then in that case, it's like, what do you call that? And then at this point, is she in fear of her life? Like, I can't leave. Like, he's going to hurt me or kill me or whatever. Like, so now you're stuck in kind of like this sex ring that you don't want to be a part of, because now the person has gotten physical with you once you told them you don't want to do this anymore. And so it's really, really tricky. I don't know how this is going to pan out. I mean, it's beyond anything my innocent ears could take. But at the same time, it's just like you have to give women the liberty, like even if they were in consent at one point, the moment that they say no, and they're not allowed to leave at their own will or whatever the situation it is, then that's a problem. So I don't really know how this is going to pan out.
Yeah, TNT, I'm sensitive to that, and I'm always fascinated by the psychological element of the no way out, right? And this may be a thing that I think this is a thing that not many men can relate to be honest with you. I think that men have a hard time relating to being in a situation that you get yourself into from a violence standpoint, that you can't somehow or another find a way out, or call the police, let somebody know, rather than hanging in there and taking sort of the repeated abuse. I think a lot of times when men find themselves in that situation, is in a much more violent situation. I would think maybe like a gang situation, some type of gang activity or something like that, where you might find yourself in similar circumstances where you feel like you can't get out of those situations. And that's a terrible spot to be in. I mean, I think a lot of people can't imagine that. So I think sometimes when we look at these situations, it's always like, well, why didn't they just get out? Why didn't they just leave? And I think that, again, the psychological aspects of that, which most of us can't comprehend because we haven't been there, makes it difficult to kind of talk about, to give takes on these, because it really is kind of one of those situations. If you haven't been there, you can't imagine, what it takes to try to break yourself out of that. So I think when we talk about this Diddy situation and you look at some of these people and you're like, man, why did they hang in there? Why did they take this? Why couldn't they just get out? I think it's hard to comprehend that if you haven't been there.
Then you add the elements of love, like you actually cared for the person, and so you want to still be with this person. You live for the good days, you know what I'm saying? But the bad days always going to pop up here and there, and it's like, well, at least you didn't die. You live to see another day. But it's like, yeah. I mean, you got to think of the mentality. Then fear. If someone put the fear in you of like, if you say anything, like it's over. Like one girl I heard he had dangled over a building or something like that's just like, that's a lot. But again, you just gotta. We're not in the courtroom. We haven't received all the information, all the evidence, but just from the little tidbits that we receive, it's just going to be a challenge to judge that one to me.
Yeah, that's a real deep situation. And it made me also think about Monica Lewinsky. She was on a podcast recently and she talked about her experiences with Bill Clinton. And we all know what happened there. And she basically reiterated that she felt like he took advantage of her. And it's like, she's a 20-something. He's I don't know what he was, 40-something. And I absolutely took advantage of the situation. I mean, you're the president of the United States. I mean, the perception alone, the the institutional power alone, the control you have over the White House and her environment alone. Bill Clinton was dead wrong. Now, as a man, even as a married man, you can say, I get it. I understand if I'm being real with you, but I mean, you're the president, bro. You have no control at all, none. But again, that power that you feel like you the man, you're everything you see, you're the master of. You feel like, hey, she's in my in my environment, so she's mine. And so he made a decision that cost him and maybe even cost the Democrats for years to come.
Yeah, I think Bill was kind of the original Diddy, wasn't he? He was the White House Diddy.
White House Diddy.
I wouldn't say he was quite that level.
Nah, I'm having a little bit of fun with that, but yeah, I mean, there was no question that Bill Clinton used his position and his power to take advantage of a situation that he should have known better. Look, Monica Lewinsky was a 22-year-old intern, and I make this assertion, everybody is like, oh, well, she's 22, she's grown. Yeah, again, if all of us reflect back to where we were mentally and maturity wise at the age of 22, you can't sit back and judge a young person like that against somebody like Bill Clinton, who was, as you said, 40 years old at that age. Who I think it was a matter of convenience for him. You open up the White House door. Oh, the intern is out there. Hey, you know what I'm saying? I think Dave Chappelle might have made that joke, and Monica Lewinsky was an affair of convenience for him. It was an easy catch. It's right there for you. And certainly that was what Bill Clinton did. And you do. Your heart does kind of go out to her for a little, because that's forever going to be her legacy, as it relates to how a lot of people look at her. They're even these days, people still are going to be reluctant to cut her any slack for her role in that. But I mean, she was 22, man. Come on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, I got a clip for you I want to play, and then I want to get your reaction. And this has gone viral. It has to do with Juneteenth. A black woman was sitting in, I don't know, it's like maybe an auto care store. Yeah, she's sitting in an auto care store. And the employees are talking about Juneteenth and maybe making some jokes about it with some customers. And, she responded. And I want to play this for you. Hold on one second. Here we go. I have to play it just like this. Check this.
We're at the order stop list this morning. Oh, then we're good, yeah.
Yeah, the first when I went to the bank, I got it.
Yeah, that's fine. I can do you already. That's fine.
Okay.
Go all over. 1 to 2, we're still stacked.
Why are the banks closed tomorrow?
Juneteenth. New holiday they did 2 years ago.
Okie dokie then.
I know, right? My fucking truck. Pull my truck around. Please. Pull my truck around. And give me my keys to my truck. I don't want this to them. Please go get my truck. Thank you. Is it this one right here? Yeah. No, it's a Berkeley Tahoe.
And that's how sis dealt with it. So they was being trivial and flippant about Juneteenth. And she get my trucker over here. She used some choice.
Guys, I couldn't hear that. Can you just slowly say the gist of what you said? I just couldn't hear the words.
The words that she was saying?
Well, either.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Could you guys hear the audio?
Yeah, I listened to it ahead of time, so I
Okay.
don't
I'm
know
just
what.
asking you to just give me the. I mean, you don't have to play
The
it again.
gist
I'm
of it.
just.
So basically, she's sitting there in the lobby waiting for her vehicle to be whatever it's going to be, and the employees, all of them appeared to be not black. Started having a conversation about. Somebody asked like, why are the banks closed? And somebody made a comment about Juneteenth, and then somebody said, oh, just kind of made a flippant, kind of sarcastic, kind of like, comment about it. And she stood up and said, "Get my effing car, get my effing car right now." I think she said effing car, and she walked out. She walked out, which I appreciate. There's some people that would have stood there and try to be all nice about it. I wish she would have dressed them down though. I wish she would have like addressed them directly and told them exactly what her issue is and how they were wrong, and then left. But I get it. It's a sister. She don't want to mess with that, and she said what she said. But what do you think about that? She handled that right?
Me, I
Well, I
could
think.
go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead, TNT. No,
No,
TNT. Go
Kevin,
ahead. Okay.
you
I was
said.
gonna say, yeah, I was gonna say, I think, look, everybody is gonna respond differently in that situation. I think, as you said, Nathan, I don't have a problem with what she did, and here's primarily why I don't have a problem with what she did. Is when you go into a place of business, right, and you're patronizing a place, there's an obligation for those folks there to, not only service you in the way that you're there, but not create an environment that's going to make you not want to be there. And if you do that, I have every right to take my business somewhere and not give you my business. I sure wouldn't have given them a single dollar just based on the way their employees were acting. Now, here's where I would have done. Here's where I might have done things a little bit different. Now, I get it. She might have been so heated that she was just like, man, let me get out of here, because if I engage into a conversation with these people, it may not be pretty, or it might not. I'm not trying to get arrested behind this foolishness up in here, or maybe she was just non-confrontational like that. But whatever her reasons for walking out the way she did is for her, and I totally understand it. I respect the fact that she was like, I'm not giving y'all my business. What I would have done differently is, one, I would have addressed it with the manager. I would have found out who the manager was of that establishment, and I would have wanted to have had a conversation with him about how I didn't appreciate how the employees were acting. Because you know what? It's not just about me, but it's about the next black person that comes in there. They shouldn't have to listen to that or that foolishness, and those employees need to know that what they were doing was not acceptable. So you need to go to management and let them know that. The other thing that I might have done is if you listen to the end of that video, they were talking about, well, I don't know what Juneteenth is. I think it got something to do with reparations, just some straight up ignorant type stuff, which lets you know that they don't know anything. So I would have taken a moment as I went out the door, and it might not have been so nice, but I would have educated them about what Juneteenth actually was, because you might be ignorant while I'm in there, but you're going to get educated before I leave, right? One way or the other. So that's how I would have handled it. Those were the two things that I would have done beyond what she did, but I applaud her for it. I wouldn't have gave them a damn dime.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a video of I think it's the shop owner. I want to play it real quick. I have not pre-listened to this, so I don't know what he's going to say. Hopefully he won't curse. But check this out.
After receiving fierce backlash, what did your staff member mean by "I know right" in response to that customer?
She was thinking the holiday had a whole nother meaning. She was believing it had to do something with the school letting out teenagers where the teeth came from it.
WRAL made several attempts
She said teenagers because of where the teeth came from. Is that even believable? I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it is. So that's the manager right there / owner. If I was him, I got to have we got to do some kind of training on, the conversations that we have in front of customers. I don't care what it is. And I don't even really want you talking politics. Leave that before you come here. This is about our business. Black, white, Democrat, Republican, they walking in the door. This is what we do. Keep your personal feelings to yourself, and I don't care what they are. But is that even believable? He said she thought that it was something to do with teenagers because of Juneteenth. Hey, Raven's with us. What's up, Raven?
Hello.
Hey. Hey, we talking about the sister that stormed out of the auto care place because they were making jokes about Juneteenth and reparations. So I'm glad you're here. Good to see you. But I'll let you guys jump in.
I mean, I didn't really hear it well the first one, but judging off you know, that last response. I don't know if she actually thought that it was like a teenager holiday or something. What I would suggest is that she Google it. I don't even know if I would have had the time to, explain it and give her the full blow of the history of Juneteenth. But if I felt so obliged, for one, I like to kill people with kindness and give people grace. But again, I didn't really see the video. If the vibe was kind of like whatever, then respectfully, however the woman uh, dealt with it, I'm gonna leave that with her. I ain't gonna criticize it. But depending on how the vibe was, when I'm dealing with white folks and they don't really understand something that's culturally significant to me, it's important to have grace because we need allies, right? You know what I'm saying? We need you, Phil. We need our allies here. Don't be rolling your eyes. Don't be rolling your eyes because the more we understand,
I'm honored that you need me. I mean, I'm honored.
That's the point of it all. And so the more that we can come together and understand it, and I don't know, I was watching something with Trevor Noah, and he had Jon Stewart on there, and they were talking about race and just how a lot of times, what we perceive as racist or whatever, we kind of it's a little bit sensitive on both ends. It is just like if we don't have enough discernment for the other to understand their position, and if we took more time to just like put ourselves in the other person's shoes, we would be in a better place. But it's hard to do when you've never lived that life and you don't really understand that position. So in a lot of ways, like he used the example of LeBron James he had said something about the Jewish community at one point and got a lot of backlash. And he's like, oh, we Jewish rich or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? But just basically saying we're dapper and we dressed up or whatever. But he got slammed for that. Like, oh, you anti-Semitic and everything else. And then, one of Trevor Noah's friends who was Jewish was like, I can't believe he said that. He had to explain to him, like, from our culture, you guys, are dressed up nice and everything else. So it's almost like a compliment. It's not necessarily as an attack. And it's just like bridging the gaps of understanding. And so even with that, yeah, it might have came off wrong with what the people were saying in that establishment. But you can't knock people for their prejudice. Racism is the nefarious, it's the evil thing, but people prejudice, that's almost natural. We all have kind of like biases and everything else. But if we can overcome those small little things and help people learn and understand so we can bridge more understanding and allies, we'll be in a better place. So I think it was definitely a moment to be a teachable moment for everyone in that establishment. And whether they received it or not, at least, you can't say you don't know what Juneteenth. You definitely can't say it was for a teenage holiday.
I've got a better video. Check this out.
Day when a customer in the waiting area at Synergy Auto Care asks,
Why are the banks closed tomorrow?
an employee behind the desk replies,
Juneteenth. New holiday they did a few years ago.
leading to this comment from the customer.
Okie dokie then.
That's when another employee says,
I know, right?
immediately, a black woman sitting in the waiting area starts to walk out, appearing upset over the exchange.
Pull my truck around, please. Pull my truck around and give me my keys to my truck.
Seconds after the customer leaves, a third customer in the waiting area asks,
What is Juneteenth?
Exactly. Nobody really knows, but I think it's something to do with reparations.
once word spread about the incident, the shop's owner,
So I mean,
Josh Doherty,
clearly, I mean, they seem genuinely.
Oh, Jesus.
They seem
There
genuinely.
was nothing genuine about that, Nathan.
You don't think so?
No, there was nothing genuine about that. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Here's what made me mad about that interaction. I love TNT and her graciousness, and she's extending the pastoral heart that usually I do on this program. So I can appreciate where she's coming from. Exactly what she sounded like, the voice of reason there, and that sounds like something that I might normally have said, except for the fact that you got a business full of white people sitting there talking about something that they don't know about, when there's a black person right there who, if you were genuinely interested in learning, that you could have approached.
But they don't. They may not even know it is a black has to do with the black thing.
But can I
They
also
were
point
just-
out?
Come on, Phil. Come on,
But
Phil. You are
but
not
can I
that.
point
Look,
out?
I think those
Phil,
people are
Phil, you are
ignorant.
not that. You are. Look, y'all are trying to extend too much grace to these white folks, and I'm not gonna
I'm
let
not
y'all
extending
do it.
grace. I
Can
think
I? But can I
doing
just
the
point out
opposite.
real
I say
quick?
they're ignorant. That's worse.
Can I point out real quick though that the question about, well, what is Juneteenth, that wasn't asked until the black woman left. So her
No,
opportunity to educate them didn't happen until she was already gone.
listen, no, y'all, boy, I love y'all. Y'all are trying to be so gracious. So you got you are.
I'm not being gracious. I'm saying they're a bunch of dumb
the
hicks.
man walks up to the counter. Okay, the first, I don't know whether he was an employee or a customer, but he asked the guy behind the counter. He says, "Why are the banks closed tomorrow?" Now maybe he genuinely didn't know why the banks are closed tomorrow. I'm guessing he probably did know why the banks were closed, but he wanted to get it popping in there.
I agree
Let's just assume for the sake of argument that he didn't know. The guy behind the desk responds to him, and he said, what is his answer? It's Juneteenth. Okay. Now, if anybody in there had any kind of real questions or curiosity about what Juneteenth was, they could have stopped it right there while the sister was still there. Right. But then the other guy responds with some kind of comment, which I couldn't hear what that was. When the guy said Juneteenth, I couldn't hear what the other white guy said in response to that.
He said
And
okie dokie.
Yeah, okie dokie.
Okay, and then the other woman said something like, yeah, right. Like, what did that mean anyway? Like, how is yeah, right a response to okie dokie, right? Because that okie dokie was a sarcastic response meant to say, oh, this is that black, not a real holiday type thing, right? And that's why the woman came back with, yeah, right, because she understood exactly what okie dokie meant, right? Look, y'all, when you break this conversation down and you paying attention, you understand that this was not an innocent conversation that these folks were trying to have. It was more of that MAGA crap about, oh, here's this fake holiday for black people. And that's what this conversation was all about.
I'm not even gonna say that what you're saying is incorrect or wrong, Kevin. What I will say is that again, if we're gonna break down the conversation, then let's do that. The guy asks why the bank's closed. Let's just say that he genuinely didn't know. The guy behind the counter says because of Juneteenth, and then he replies, "Okie dokie then." And then the lady from who works there, she says, "I know, right?" Because that's what she said. She said, "I know, right?" As if to say, like, I know it's ridiculous, ain't it? I can agree with you there. She for sure said it to be mocking or to be sarcastic. And then that's when the black lady responds, as you probably would have responded, Kevin, based on your your comments so far. She was like, you know what? I'm not gonna sit here for this foolishness. Give me my car, I'll go somewhere else. As is her right. But again, the teachable educational moment that T. Nicole was referring to, it unfortunately didn't happen until after she left, because that was the moment then that the other white lady who was a customer sitting there asked the question, well, what even is Juneteenth? And then that's when the guy behind the counter reveals he's either his ignorance or his prejudice, either or, because these days prejudice and ignorance look about the same. We all have the same access to a library and to the internet. So if you ignorant at this point, it probably is due to your prejudice. Let's just keep it a buck. But he reveals both of those things when he says, "Oh, I don't know. I think it has something to do with reparations." I can't fault that black woman for leaving, because she felt something in that conversation that was present before it even fully got to the end of the conversation. She felt the vibe of, there is a level of ignorance and or prejudice here that is not welcoming to me and my person. So I'm gonna remove myself, and I can't blame her for that. I again, to that pastoral heart, I appeal. I love a moment to be able to have grace and to be Christ-like in those moments. And maybe if I would have stuck around, I would have been able to teach you something about Juneteenth, so that you ain't out here just willfully ignorant. Now you can fully enact your prejudice because you can no longer say that you're ignorant. Maybe that's what that could have been, but I don't blame a black woman by herself in that establishment to value protecting her peace and protecting her person by removing herself versus taking that moment to create a teachable moment. Not every moment, unfortunately, is a teachable moment. And sometimes you have to weigh the value of, do I protect myself in this moment or do I teach these people something? She chose to protect herself, and I can't be mad at that.
You
Yeah,
guys are
Raven, that
100%
None of
right.
those white folks in
yeah,
there was thinking
Raven,
that
you
they was
came in
really.
late on that, but you broke down a lot of things that we had said prior to. I think we were all in agreement that she handled it probably the right way for
Yeah.
her. You know, I had kind of added on what were the additional things that I would have done, and I would have probably have taken the time to educate, maybe not in such a nice way. You know, it may not have
Nice,
been,
nasty.
you know, yeah, the best, most polite way, but I
Yeah.
definitely would have made sure they understood what Juneteenth was before I left there, right?
And see, and I agree. I probably, as I was getting up to leave, I probably would let them know. Well, just so you know for sure, tomorrow is Juneteenth, and this is what Juneteenth is, and so moving forward, this is why it ought to be respected. And then I would have got it through, but it wouldn't have been it. But again, I get her being so disturbed by the sarcasm they were tossing across the room in front of her face that she
Yeah.
didn't even feel like doing all that. She just got up and was like, you know what, screw this, give me my card. You're not going to get none of my money as a consumer, and I'm gonna go.
And see, and she has every right to be offended. Like, it just depends on the person. Some people, you don't know what they've been through throughout the day. And some people don't have the tolerations, like their tolerance level for, the snipiness or whatever, even the impression of like racist talk. They don't have it, say not today. And then some people, saying, I got time for it today. But at the same time, all of it is for naught, because even if she walked out the door and wasn't able to explain, we don't have DEI anymore. DEI would have had some sort of cultural sensitivity training to help those employees understand the gap of like their understanding. They wouldn't be sitting up here far-fetching like, oh, I think it's reparations, or I think it's a teenage holiday. Of course, everybody got access to their phone. They can Google it or whatnot, but it's something with just the cultural sensitivity training that some establishments have when they make like a mistake. Like that woman decided to call and complain and, get upper management on there. How do they rectify that? How do they, get their employees to understand, like, this situation, the significance of this holiday or whatever? A lot of these DEI programs are gone. So, the willful ignorance continues.
I would have ran them down. And I'm not trying to educate you about Juneteenth. I don't give a damn. But I would have let them know, you're not going to sit here and play in my face. You see me sitting over here and you want to have some kind of flippant conversation around me. I'd let them exactly what the problem was. I would have threw it right back in their face, because they were trying to play with her. They were trying to play with her. They knew she was sitting over there. And this is the kind of stuff that Black people deal with in some cases on their jobs. On their jobs. Like, we think discrimination. Nah, people deal with that on their jobs. And it used to be worse for our grandparents. They had to deal with this kind of stuff, and they didn't have a robust federal government that was there to stop it and lock down on it. That's the reason why Trump and his band of nefarious criminals are so bad for Black folks, because they want to do away with the federal protections to make sure that kind of stuff happens on the job. They want the bosses to be able to do whatever they want to do to you, and you've got no recourse except to appeal to their good nature. So she did the exact right thing. I'm glad for her. And there's a lot of Black folks, sad to say, they would have sat there and act like they didn't hear it or put their earbuds in. Man, please. You're not going to play with me in front of me? Like, you don't see me sitting here? It was dead wrong. Dead wrong. Dead wrong.
Yeah, the one thing I think that Raven said that I didn't fully appreciate until she kind of said it, and this is what I'll say. This is why I say everybody's reaction is different, because you got a woman sitting in there, there are a bunch of men, white people. There's a recognition that some people might be concerned about physical threat. You know what I'm saying? And they just may not feel comfortable in saying, like you said, like, man, this ain't even worth it right now, so I'm gonna just sit here. I think the most powerful thing that she did was get up and say, I'm not gonna patronize this business. I'm not gonna. One, I don't have to sit here and listen to this, and two, I don't have to give you my money. So that was as powerful a statement as you could make if you didn't want to mix it up because you were, fearful of, hey, quite frankly, just being in this room full of white folks, and being a
I'm
woman.
the only minority person in this room,
Yeah.
and I'm female. Y'all don't give a damn if something go left in here and I end up being the one injured or harmed. I'm not gonna put myself in the line of fire just to prove a point right now. I'm gonna get up out of here, give me my keys to my truck so I can go somewhere where I can be respected.
Yeah, and you got to figure too, if they're willing to play in your face, that means they don't care. They don't care. They don't care about.
Yeah.
They don't care about how you feel. And if somebody don't care about how you feel, then you don't know what they might do to you in those situations. But
Well,
but
I mean,
Nathan,
think about it, Kevin. She's there to spend money. This is your customer.
Mm-hmm.
So flip it. Let's say I'm the owner of the shop. We got all black folks in there. We got a couple white people in there, and then my employees who happen to be black start talking about, and this isn't a close approximation. They start talking about 4th of July, the 4th of July in a disparaging way. I got a problem with it.
Yeah.
I got a problem with it. You're on the job. Keep your personal feelings to yourself. The customers don't need to hear none of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, it's about being professional, man. You got to be professional on the job, and there's just some conversations that are not meant for, public consumption, or even conversations that you need to be having with your coworkers, because you brought up this notion of, conversations that are had within the workplace, right?
Let them have been having a conversation about Veterans Day, and it have been veterans present in the room. All hell would have broke loose.
Yeah. Yeah, like you shouldn't be having these conversations with your coworkers in the middle of your workplace for those very same reasons that you can easily offend somebody. But so it's not just about public facing, it's also about the people that you work with. And you brought this up because I think all of us can probably attest to some situation where you've overheard or been in proximity of not exactly that conversation, but something that was either racially or gender offensive. And this conversation was going on, and you just sit here like, it gives you a whole different vibe about your workplace, right? As an employee. And so that's why you just got to keep the main thing about the main thing, keep it professional. And if another thing I might have done is I might have showed up with TNT, Raven, Nathan Ivey, the NAACP, and a whole bunch of other people with some signs out in front of that business the next day, letting people know, hey, this is what Juneteenth is, and these folks in here don't respect you enough, you know what I'm saying, to not, to respect who you are and the culture, and not only that, a national holiday, right? If we walked in there, like you said, talking about Veterans Day or Independence Day or
St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day. We disrespecting Irish people. Irish people know we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
Only thing is, Juneteenth just became a federal holiday, even though for a lot of us, we've been doing this for a long, long time. So it is new to a lot of people, and it is going to be, kind of like this culture shock thing for people that aren't familiar with this to understand. And so again, it becomes a situation like, if people aren't taking the time to really learn what the holiday is about, then you're going to have these like off-color comments and everything else, especially if they like, oh, well, it's a holiday for LGBTQ or a holiday. Like if it isn't their community, if it isn't, something that they can relate to, then of course, you're going to get something off color. But it's like, again, an opportunity for them to learn and understand and to be, better humans in this. And so again, we lost the cultural sensitivity, and so in this moment it's become a big spectacle on the news. And so hopefully with all of that, they take the time to learn about it, or they're just going to dig deeper in their ignorance and racism and feel the fragility of, oh, we're being attacked and all of this, and they're just going to dig in deeper in their beliefs and their hatred. And so that don't work. We got to get to a point where we understand and appreciate the cultures of different people and live together with that and not be offended by every little thing when people don't quite understand just yet. But I do get it. Like, you're not going to sit up here and act like I'm not in here, and then nobody come to be like, hey, do you, can you explain? Do you mind explaining or whatever? Because sometimes you can't even do that with Black folks. Like, a white person come like, can I touch your hair? Like, no, it's just like, but they don't understand. So it's just like, how do you get to a place where you can do it with grace, give them the grace because they don't understand and not feel offended by every little thing, or just
here's where I kind of agree and disagree. What I would say with the "can I touch your hair" type thing is I know I can't walk up to any woman, black, white, or whatever, and just touch their hair, right? That's common sense. So starting it, like, I think there's a difference between general lack of education and willful ignorance, right? So you're right. Juneteenth is a new federal holiday, but this ain't like the first year we done celebrated. Juneteenth has like been around since 2021, so it's about 4 years old. So if you 4 years after the implement of Juneteenth asking or questioning what Juneteenth is, you are willfully ignorant. You're not uneducated. You are willfully ignorant, because things that I don't know about that I care to learn, right? I look it up. If I don't know something, if somebody say a word on this podcast I don't understand, you best believe when I get off of here, if I'm not doing it while we on here, I'm gonna look it up and I'm gonna be like, oh, well, what did TNT mean when she said that? So one of the things that frustrates black folk, and I feel you when you said you probably wouldn't have spent time, you'd have told them to Google it, right? But the problem with that is, they ain't gonna Google it. And here's how I know they ain't gonna Google it. Because if they were really genuinely interested in knowing what Juneteenth was, right, they would have been done looked that up. They have no genuine interest in learning what Juneteenth is. That question, well, what is Juneteenth, was not a genuine question. That's why I had a whole problem with this interaction. Because if you really
Because
want
they've
to,
already been told what Juneteenth is by
yeah,
watching Fox News. Fox News
right,
told them that it was about reparations. It was a made up holiday that black people are using to get reparations. That's exactly what he
yeah,
said. I think it
right,
has something to do with reparations. Doesn't that not sound like a Fox News talking point? They
yeah.
already think they know what it is.
I would
Hold
have
up
been
now.
impressed if any of them
No, I
had even
think
pulled out their phone and was like, "Hey, let's look it up." But they were not going to do that, because the question was not a genuine question, and that's why I'm not willing to extend the pastoral heart and grace. I'm willing to extend that to people who are genuinely curious and who are genuinely uneducated. But these folks were willfully ignorant, and they were trying to make a spectacle out of this. They had no real genuineness in trying to figure out what Juneteenth was. And this is what, and so for Phil and any of our white listeners out there, one of the things that frustrates minority groups in general is we always, not only do we have to deal with the ignorance, but it's on us to educate you. Educate yourself. If you don't know the answer about something black, I say this every time on this podcast, Google is a wonderful thing. If there's something that you wonder, we got AI, and AI will even help you on
Why are
Google
you
now.
looking at me?
I'm not looking at you. I'm looking in general, and I'm gonna throw this in. I just want you to know this too, Phil. Going back to our reparations conversation, that cup of coffee you bought me was not reparations. I don't want you thinking that cup of coffee that you bought me is good on reparations. It's gonna take about 50 million cups of coffee for my ancestors feel
All
satisfied.
right, I'll open my checkbook. All right, okay.
he said 50 million. That sounds about right.
I gotta jump, guys. I gotta jump off. If I could just say,
Yeah,
one
go right
quick
ahead.
thing.
We're ending right now.
P.T. Barnum once said, "Nobody ever went broke underestimating the taste of the American people." And my guess about those people in there, they probably knew it was a black thing, but I would be shocked if they actually knew what it was. Because I bet you if you go off, ask uh, 8 of 10 white people anywhere, I don't think they have the, I hate to say it, the knowledge that this is a holiday representing the end of slavery. Sorry, I just have very low respect. I mean, when I look at how people vote, the polls and all that, I would guess that they were ignorant, though, as I said, probably knew it had something to do with African Americans. I think I should also point out, remember when I was talking before about all the efforts to suck up of Republican congressmen to suck up to Trump? I left one out, actually. One of the bills that's been proposed is to, this is true, make his birthday a national holiday. Oh, no. And you might remember he made this comment on Juneteenth, on the day that we got too many of these non-working holidays. But I'll guarantee if they pass that bill, he won't have any problem with it.
Right.
Well, guys, that's all I got. I appreciate your time. And Raven, dang it, I wish we would have got you in earlier, but maybe next Friday if you're available, or whenever you're available.
I'll look
reach out.
forward to it. I also,
Absolutely.
just before we go, just one more thing, just the one more small point about this
Yeah,
whole holiday thing.
go right ahead.
It's awful interesting to me how the country, like, as supposedly the country is so concerned, and this administration is so concerned about all these non-working holidays, but on days like St. Patrick's, specifically days like St. Patrick's Day, that is supposed to celebrate Irish heritage, and especially Cinco de Mayo, that's supposed to celebrate Mexican heritage. It's awful interesting to me how those holidays have never been considered like unimportant, or, been kind of
They're
looked
not
at with
actual
the size
holidays.
of,
They're not real holidays.
they're not technically
Yeah.
real observed holidays, but they still are
Yeah.
holidays that are observed retail, at least retail wise and culturally wise. They are the excuses that people use every March and every May to go out and drink and spend money on tacos and beer pretzels. Like, that's what they are. And nobody bats an eye, nobody blinks, nobody thinks anything that it's a big deal. But these are specifically to honor heritages that don't necessarily have anything to do with the quote unquote American, dream, or the view that, the most patriotic Americans claim that they hold about being in America. There are plenty of non-Irish, non-Mexican people who celebrate both and embrace both with no issue. But when you put that same scope, or that same, emphasis on Black heritage in America, which is American heritage. That's the insane part. African American heritage is American heritage. It is one and the same.
Mhm.
It gets so much pushback. It gets treated with so much disdain, and it's kind of insane to me that, like, that's it's not even insane. I'll even say that actually it makes the most sense, because there is nothing that celebrates Blackness that somebody who aligns themselves with white supremacy doesn't view as a revolutionary act. And I want us to really understand that when we think about how people are having conversations and treating Juneteenth. It is a revolutionary act to even celebrate Juneteenth, because it is a direct spit in the face to white supremacy. And so I can go as far as saying that somebody who vehemently disagrees with even the existence of a national observance of Juneteenth is a full-fledged supporter of white supremacy. That's the end all be all. You don't value Black joy unless it is attached to your gain. That is the antithesis of white supremacy. Black people can't have nothing unless I, as a white person in America, benefit from it. Unless I feel that it is valid, unless I give it power. Because if I don't give it power, you don't have a right to it. And I just want to leave that where it is.
Well, here's Raven. You said a lot there. You said a lot of really good stuff. I think that the reality, anything that is tied in this country to slavery and civil rights, is a part of the history that white Americans don't want to discuss, that they want to bury, that they don't want to entertain because of how it makes them feel about themselves, right? And the fact that we have never reconciled as a country, fully reconciled those things. And so when you talk about Juneteenth or slavery or Martin Luther King Day or whatever, white people don't think of those as celebrations of a country, things that we should get behind, that we should be
Yeah.
proud of as a nation. That we come, white folks look at it as holidays designed to make white folks feel bad about who they are. That's how a lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
He's
think we might have lost them.
yeah.
Yeah, that's why you lost them. Well, I was gonna end anyway, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I think we got Kevin back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know you were trying to wrap it up,
Yep.
but at the end of the day, I was just gonna say this real quickly.
Your video is
Juneteenth
not
should.
on.
Oh, you can't see the
Nope.
video.
No
All right.
video.
Well, I'll just save it for next week.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, everybody. And thanks to Laketa Cole. We'll try to hook back up with her sometime real quick. Next Tuesday at 1 p.m., another Hot Mic podcast. Until then, have a great weekend.